Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas. I am Molly Gambhir. Here's what's lined up for you on the show tonight. For nearly 8 months now, ever since the Russia-Ukraine war started, the one question that has been asked time and again is, which way will this war go? Where are things headed? Who is winning? Tonight on Gravitas, we tell you about the biggest escalation in this war. Russia has bombed 10 cities across Ukraine as it carries out revenge strikes. Revenge for what? What was the trigger? And what lies ahead? Why is this a crucial turning point in this conflict? We decode this and more in this edition of Gravitas. The war in Ukraine has escalated. After suffering a slew of setbacks, the Russian forces are retaliating. There was sustained bombing in at least 10 cities. At least 11 people have died. Over 80 are injured. The US has called the strikes horrific. The European Union called it barbaric. India says it is deeply concerned by this escalation. The world is talking about the pictures from Ukraine. Let's bring you up to speed with all the developments, starting with a map of Ukraine. Just look at this, from Lviv in the west to Kharkiv in the east and Mykolaiv in the south. Bombs were dropped in all directions. Reports say Russia launched at least 75 missiles, 40 were intercepted by Ukraine. The rest escaped Ukrainian defenses. 11 infrastructure facilities in Ukraine have been damaged, and this includes Kiev. Rockets rained down on Ukraine's capital. To call these strikes horrific would be an understatement. I have some pictures to show you. A journalist was reporting live from the heart of Kiev when missiles were fired. Have a look.
A major city in the south of the country, very close to the front lines, was hit. More than a dozen.
Looks scary, does it not? When the attack started, a girl was filming herself on the streets of Kiev. A missile fell dangerously close to her.
У мене трясуться руки, тому що я щойно побачила, як летить ракета. І я почула це.
Here is what was happening on the streets of Kiev. Vehicles were ablaze, roads were blown up, and several buildings were damaged. The skyline of Kiev was filled up with smoke. Have a look. It was a deadly morning in Kiev. Now look at the aftermath. One of the missiles dropped here at a children's park. Let me remind you, this is not supposed to be a war zone, but a missile landed right inside this children's park. Just look at that massive crater. Even diplomatic missions came under attack. A German consulate in Kiev was hit. Romania says a missile fell just 850 meters from its embassy in Kiev. Romania's foreign minister has issued a strong condemnation. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky stepped out on the streets after that wave of missile strikes. He shared Kiev's initial assessment.
The morning is difficult. We are dealing with terrorists. Dozens of missiles, Iranian Shaheeds. They have two targets, energy facilities throughout the country. Kiev, Khmelnytsky region, Lviv and Dnipro, Vinnytsia, Ivano-Frankivsk region, Zaporizhia, Sumy region, Kharkiv region, Zhytomyr region, Kirovograd region, the south of the country. They want panic and chaos. They want to destroy our energy system. They are hopeless. The second target is people.
And barely a few hours after that message, Vladimir Putin delivered his own address. The Russian president spoke to his Security Council, but his message was relayed worldwide. What was the reason behind such a massive escalation? Here is Putin answering that question.
By its action, the Kyiv regime has de facto put itself in a row with international terrorist formations, with most heinous groups. To leave such crimes with no response is just not possible anymore. This morning, on the advice of the Defense Ministry and according to a plan from the General Staff, a massive strike was carried out with high precision, long-range weapons from air, sea and land on energy, military command and communication facilities in Ukraine.
What crimes was Putin talking about? What was he referring to? This bridge, the Kerch Strait Bridge, also known as the Crimean Bridge, it was blown up over the weekend. That is what Putin is so angry about. Because this bridge is a lifeline for Russia. It is the only land route that connects Crimea with the Russian mainland. The bridge has a road and railway line. On Saturday, there was a fiery explosion. Did you see that? Apparently, a truck exploded on the bridge. It ignited some fuel tanker nearby. That is what caused the explosions. Now, guess who tweeted that video out? It was an advisor to the Ukrainian government. Kiev has not officially claimed responsibility for the blast, but on social media, Ukrainian officials were celebrating the explosion. Consider this tweet. It's from Oleksiy Danilov. He is the chief of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council. He shared a video. It shows the bridge in Crimea engulfed in flames, along with Marilyn Monroe singing, "Happy birthday, Mr. President." Vladimir Putin celebrated his 70th birthday on Saturday. There was a message with the video. Good morning, Ukraine. I'm sure you would have joined the dots by now. That is the reason behind today's escalation. Vladimir Putin is angry. Russia is blaming the Ukrainian forces for the blast on that bridge. Moscow has suffered a series of setbacks on the battlefield in recent weeks. Leading experts and the government in Kiev were expecting the Russian forces to hit back. Today's military action seems to be the beginning of Russia's retaliation. Putin says he plans to respond forcefully.
It is simply impossible to leave crimes of this kind unanswered. If attempts to carry out acts of terrorism on our territory continue, Russia's response will be harsh and its scale will correspond to that of the threat made against the Russian Federation. No one should be in any doubt about that.
The invasion of Ukraine is a personal battle for Vladimir Putin. Ukraine was a part of the Soviet Union, and we all know what the Russian president feels about its collapse. He has called it a genuine tragedy. The war in Ukraine is his personal effort to rewrite history and undo what he calls a genuine tragedy. All signs indicate that Putin plans to intensify this war. Last month, he announced a partial mobilization. 300,000 reservists are being sent to the front lines. And then we witnessed the annexation of 4 Ukrainian territories. And now, the retaliatory missile strikes. Today, the Russian president made another big move. He is forging a deeper military alliance with Belarus. Russia and Belarus have created a joint military task force. The Belarusian president, Alexander Lukashenko, gave an order to his troops. They have been asked to deploy with the Russian forces. Lukashenko issued a warning to Kiev as well.
Tell the president of Ukraine and the other lunatics, if any of them are still there, that the Crimean bridge will seem to them like a walk in the park if they ever touch a single square meter of our territory with their dirty hands.
What's the basis of that claim? We are not sure. But the problem with a military escalation is this. The situation can easily spin out of control and lead to some unintended consequences. Putin's missile strikes today have led to some unexpected outcomes. 3 Russian missiles today crossed Moldova's airspace. That's right, the Russians launched these missiles from the Black Sea. They were supposed to hit Ukraine. Instead, they ended up violating the Moldovan airspace. Will the war in Ukraine spill over to its neighborhood? The possibility has always been there. Russia's latest military moves have increased the chances of a spillover. Our next story is from Germany. Last week, it hosted the Pakistani Foreign Minister, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. This visit was supposed to be about Pakistan, the financial crisis that it's facing, the devastation caused by the floods, the political mess that it's currently in. But for some reason, it ended up being about India. Annalena Baerbock, the German foreign minister, was speaking at a joint press conference with Zardari. She raked up the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, an issue that she said needs to be actively discussed at the UN. Let me quote here. Germany has a role and responsibility with regard to the situation of Kashmir. Therefore, we support intensively the engagement of the United Nations to find peaceful solutions in the region. There are tensions, so we encourage Pakistan and we encourage India to follow the track of the ceasefire. I repeat, follow the track of the ceasefire. The same ceasefire that Pakistan violated over 5,000 times in 2020. A fact that Germany conveniently ignored. The Indian Foreign Ministry has given it a reminder. In a sharply worded statement over the weekend, it slammed Germany's unwarranted advice and self-acquired role on the matter. It's a striking statement. Listen to it carefully. The Indian Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir has borne the brunt of a terrorist campaign for decades. This continues till now. Foreign nationals have been victims there, as also in other parts of India. When states do not recognize such dangers either because of self-interest or indifference, they undermine the cause of peace. not promote it. They also do grave injustice to the victims of terrorism. It could not have been put in a better way. The gripe against India was unwarranted, not only for the sake of bilateral ties, but for the simple reason that the world acknowledges Pakistan as a terror state. From the United Nations Security Council to the Financial Action Task Force, global bodies are investigating Pakistan's role in multiple terror attacks on Indian soil. So what explains such sermons from Germany? Is it just oblivious to the reality, or did the statement have a hidden agenda? Well, there is no easy answer to this question, just a lot of speculation. And some of that speculation is related to the war in Ukraine. Germany is at the forefront of opposing Russia along with the rest of the European countries. It's trying to bring Russia down both militarily and economically. India, on the other hand, is neither supporting Russia nor Ukraine, a position that New Delhi has communicated to both sides very clearly. It has asked both sides to engage in dialogue and find an amicable solution. So, is Germany indulging in such pressure tactics to get back at India? Yes, say analysts. They say this could be a bid to penalize India for not towing Europe's position on the war. It could also be because of India's growing global role. For instance, the fact that the US government is going out of its way to include India in the many security dialogues that it is initiating. The second reason could be Germany's politics. You see, the current dispensation in Germany is a coalition government made up of three parties. The Prime Minister is from the center-left Social Democratic Party. The Foreign Minister is from the Alliance 90 or the Greens. In the past, they were both competitors. Both Scholz and Baerbock ran for the chancellorship. They both publicly opposed each other's policies. They had to put their differences aside and make certain compromises to come to power. So does the statement on Kashmir stem from these differences? Did the German foreign minister make the remarks at whim, or does the German leadership agree with what the minister said? These are questions that Germany must answer. Let's now talk about Germany's neighbor, France. It's in the grip of an energy crisis. Most European countries are right now, but the situation in France is especially complex. Oil refineries are out of stock, petrol pumps are running dry, and the people are getting restless. Have a look at the images on your screen. They are from the capital city, Paris. It is engulfed by a sea of cars. Wherever you see, there are long queues of motorists waiting to get their tanks refilled. Reports say in recent weeks, a total of 100,000 motorists have reported running out of oil. They filed complaints on an online portal which tracks petrol stations. Let's listen to some voices.
Honestly, today the French people want to pay for fuel. Look there, they want to pay. It's not that they don't want to. They want to pay. They're not even given the choice to pay because a shortage was created.
I'm at a point where I just need to find gas, that's all. And as for the price, we don't have a choice. If the price is not good for me, I can't go elsewhere, or I would go looking for ours.
It's a sad state of affairs. More so for the fact that it's happening in a developed country like France. What explains it? An easy answer would be the war in Ukraine, Russia's chokehold on the gas supplies to Europe. It has indeed lowered France's gas reserves. But there is another factor which has made this crisis even worse. And that is a strike by France's largest trade unions. The General Confederation of Labour, CGT, has staged a walkout. Most of the workers happen to be from Total Energies and ExxonMobil, two of the country's biggest petroleum companies. A strike by France's largest trade unions, the General Confederation of Labour, CGT. How many of them are we talking about? More than 40,000. How long have they been protesting for? for over 2 weeks. And why exactly are they protesting? Because they want a 10% pay hike. How long do they plan to be on strike? Until their demands are met. These protests have triggered a gas shortage, and reports say France's total refinery output has reduced by 60%, and this explains the long queues in Paris. What's worse, that's not the only outcome of this strike. It has also led to protests to make France leave the European Union. Look at the images on your screen. They are from Paris. On Sunday, thousands of protesters gathered in the city to call for an end to France's membership in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
Sortons vite de l'OTAN! Sortons vite de l'OTAN! Sortons vite de l'OTAN! Sortons vite de l'OTAN! Sortons vite!
What difference will leaving the NATO make? It will save France from being collateral damage due to that war in Ukraine. Well, that's what the protesters say. They say leaving the NATO would mean an end to whatever little differences France has with Russia. It will help France take decisions independently without any binding regulations of the NATO. They expect this step to lower the high cost of living and help France replenish its gas reserves. So first there was a strike, now there are protests, and they have both increased the pressure on the French president, who is already facing public discontent due to growing costs. Last we checked, Emmanuel Macron had not commented on the matter. This was as far as the crisis in France is concerned. The situation in other European nations is not good either. As winter approaches and gas shortages widen, a lot of Europeans are hoarding wood in order to keep warm. In the UK, the national grid has warned of 3-hour power cuts, and this has forced the British government to draw up contingency plans. The same story in Italy. Due to growing gas shortages, it has decided to revive old coal plants, temporarily halt the work at factories, and shorten heating hours at the workplaces. In Spain, air conditioning at airports and stations has been limited. Shops are being asked to dim their lights at night. Simply put, the whole of Europe is in a fix. The protests may be restricted to France for now, but there is no saying if they will not spread as winter approaches. Let's now shift our attention to China. The final preparations have started. On Sunday, Beijing will host the country's biggest political event, the Communist Party Congress. Over 2,000 delegates will be in attendance, but all eyes will be on one man, Xi Jinping. If you are a regular viewer, you would probably know the reason why. He will get a historic term extension. Xi Jinping will be president for another 5 years. There is a lot that's happening behind the scenes ahead of that big event. Let's now tell you all that you need to know. Ahead of that big day, senior Communist Party leaders have gathered in Beijing. They are holding a secret meeting, and Xi Jinping was a part of it. Who are these leaders? The Central Committee of the Communist Party. They are called the Inner Circle of Power. How many members does it have? About 370. Xi Jinping is said to have briefed them all ahead of that big event on Sunday. This meeting is called the 7th Plenum. What did Xi Jinping tell the senior members? We don't know much. Like most things in Chinese politics, there is a thick veil of secrecy around these conversations. But here is what we can say. President Xi outlined the speech that he will be delivering at the beginning of the Congress. There is also talk of an amendment to the Chinese constitution. Again, the specifics are unknown. And we only get to know next week when the party congress begins. So far, everything is going as per schedule, but there are a few things that could derail the entire event. COVID-19. According to one report, there is chaos in China. A total lockdown has been imposed in Xinjiang. Things are so bad that local officials have had to admit that they failed to contain the outbreak. Inner Mongolia has become a major hotspot as well. In Yunnan, the local authorities are resorting to extreme measures. Recently, an airport was shut down because of the new infections. Travelers were stopped from leaving the airport. Look at what happened next. Did you see that? Those people in hazmat suits were guards. They had guns. And they stopped people from leaving the airport. Events within the region would bother Xi Jinping as well. North Korea is raising the tensions with its missile tests. Pyongyang has released some pictures. They show Kim Jong-un watching a missile launch. Reports say Pyongyang has conducted 8 tests now in 2 weeks. What is on Kim Jong-un's mind? Why is the North Korean leader conducting so many drills? North Korea revealed its intentions today. The state mouthpiece put out a broadcast. It says the tests are supposed to be practice drills showcasing North Korea's ability to conduct tactical strikes on the south.
Under such inevitable circumstances, the Central Military Commission of the Workers' Party of Korea, after discussing the political and military situation prevailing on the Korean peninsula and its future in the latter half of September, decided to organize military drills under simulation of an actual war.
So there is now talk of a nuclear test. Japan and South Korea are afraid that it might happen soon. There is speculation that Kim Jong-un could test a bomb during the Chinese Communist Party Congress. And if that happens, it will overshadow Xi Jinping's coronation. And we will keep a close eye on the developments. Our next story is about Elon Musk. The Tesla CEO is in the news again. What for, you ask? Well, after voluntarily suggesting a peace plan for the Russia-Ukraine war, Musk now has a truce plan for the China-Taiwan conflict. Our next report telling you all about it.
Elon Musk and controversy seem to go hand in hand. This time, the Tesla CEO has waded into another one over his peace plan for China and Taiwan. Before you start scratching your head, let's give you the lowdown. In an interview released on Friday, he offered a solution to the China-Taiwan tensions. He suggested that Taiwan hand over some control to Beijing. What was his recommendation? To figure out a special administrative zone for Taiwan. He added that it could have a more lenient arrangement than Hong Kong. Musk believes that a conflict over Taiwan is inevitable. He estimated that it would cost the global economy to take a 30% hit. What led to Musk suggesting this peace plan? Musk made the statements about Taiwan when asked about the Tesla Gigafactory in Shanghai. The factory produced about half of all Tesla cars delivered last year. So, Musk spoke his mind. What about China and Taiwan? Well, both of them reacted to his comments. China, naturally, was quite pleased. The Chinese ambassador to the US, Qin Gang, thanked Musk for his call for peace. The ambassador said one country, two systems was the best way to approach the reunification of China and Taiwan. Taiwan's de facto ambassador to the United States, Xiao Bi-Kim, meanwhile rejected Musk's proposal. Without naming him, she said Taiwan's freedom and democracy were not for sale. She added that any proposal for Taiwan's future must respect the wishes of Taiwan's people. Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen gave a speech on Monday, the National Day in Taiwan. She made no reference to Musk, but clearly stated Taiwan's stance on reunification.
The broadest consensus among the Taiwanese people and our various political parties is that we must defend our national sovereignty and our free and democratic way of living. On this point, we have no room for compromise.
Taipei does not want to hand over any control to Beijing, while China remains adamant. Both sides have made their stance clear. What's also clear is that Elon Musk and controversy continue to remain synonymous.
Journalism is all about storytelling. The question is, how far can you go for the sake of your story? Ask CNN. The American news broadcaster has become the talk of the town, and not in a good way. So what did CNN do? It trespassed for the sake of a story. Now, I'll give you an insight into how newsrooms work. You see, every time a story breaks, news outlets dispatch their reporters to get something that no other organization has, maybe exclusive footage, an exclusive interview, or exclusive insight into a story. One such story broke on the 6th of October. There was an attack at a child care center in Thailand. An ex-cop ended up killing 37 people, 23 of them were children. It was Thailand's worst massacre. A crime of this scale was bound to evoke curiosity. People had all sorts of questions. Why did the ex-cop do what he did? What exactly happened at the crime scene? Who were these children who died? What does the daycare center look like? It's normal to respond to a crime with questions. The problem begins when you cross a line to answer these questions for the sake of your story. And that is exactly what CNN did this weekend. Its reporters entered the crime scene without authorization. Thai authorities had cordoned off the daycare center. It was off limits for journalists. But that did not seem to mean much for CNN. If journalists entered the crime scene, they filmed blood-stained floors, sent the footage to the CNN headquarters, which then did not think twice before putting graphic content on air, and that too without any disclaimer. There is so much that's problematic here. So many people who were wronged, the victims, their families, local authorities, even CNN's own viewers. Did they ask to see young children's blood on air? So why did CNN do what it did? The network claims the team entered the building in good faith. The idea, quote unquote, was to gain a fuller impression of what transpired inside and to humanize the scale of the tragedy. Just FYI, the tragedy did not need CNN to humanize it. 23 children were killed in cold blood. You don't need CNN to heighten the emotions of this crime. Also, humanizing is one thing, sensationalizing quite another. Humanizing would be to respect the grieving family, not jumping a wall and police states for the sake of footage. Look at this. The Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand has issued this statement. It asks CNN, would one of their crews have behaved in the same way at a serious crime scene in the United States? They probably would have. In fact, they have in the past. I will give you an example in a bit. But before that, I want to just put this on record. I'm not making a case against journalism anything but that. We are all for freedom of press. This story is about the breach of journalistic ethics. It's about crossing lines for the sake of viewership. Exclusive footage, ratings, trespassing to get a story. Things that the media fraternity is unfortunately no longer unfamiliar with. We have seen this before. We have seen mics being shoved into the faces of grieving family members. We have seen uncomfortable questions being asked. We have seen the media hounding mourners who want to be left alone. Something similar was playing out right after the Uvalde school massacre. The conduct of American journalists had angered people to an extent that a person walked up to a reporter and told her, "I hope your entire family dies in a massacre," quote unquote. You see, the problem is not about covering a story. The challenge is to tell a story sensitively. Now, coming back to what happened in Thailand, CNN claims it was given permission from health officials to enter the site, but these officials were not authorized to hand out permissions. Whatever the case is, lines were crossed here. Editorial ethics were compromised. And there are no two sides to this story. The CNN reporter also seems to agree. She has been quoted as saying, "We know your country is going through a painful time, and we never came here to cause more grief." Unfortunately, though, they did cause more grief. Thailand fined the reporter and the camera person for working as journalists while on tourist visas. They paid $133 each and left the country. But difficult questions remain for the media fraternity. How do you cover a tragedy? How do you ethically document a tragedy or tell a story without being disrespectful to the victims? These are questions American media and the media world over must think about. And here's another question that the world is dealing with. To what extent can we rely on technology? And this is a question that is becoming increasingly relevant with the kind of influence that technology has on our daily lives. Let's face it, we rely on technology today for just about anything and everything. It does help us lead our lives, but there are times when technology can turn deadly. It could mean the difference between life and death. Take the case of what happened in the United States. In North Carolina on the 30th of September, Phil Paxson was driving home. It was a good day. He had just celebrated his daughter's 9th birthday. But then things took an ugly turn. Phil, like a lot of us do, was relying on the GPS while driving. Here's what happened next. The navigation system directed him to a bridge. But the problem here was that there was no bridge. It was destroyed years ago. His car fell into a river and he died. Phil was just 47 years old. These details were shared by Phil Paxson's mother-in-law in a Facebook post. Linda McPhee wrote, and I'm quoting, "Our family suffered a horrible loss on September 30th. My son-in-law, Phil Paxson, lost his life returning home after celebrating his daughter's 9th birthday in Hickory, North Carolina. It was a dark and rainy night, and he was following his GPS, which led him down a concrete road to a bridge that dropped off into a river. The bridge had been destroyed 9 years ago and never repaired. It lacked any barriers or warning signs to prevent the death of a 47-year-old father of 2 daughters. He will be greatly missed by his family and friends. It was a total preventable accident. We are grieving his death," quote unquote. It is an incident that has left people shocked. It is, after all, the latest incident where technology turned lethal. According to Phil's mother-in-law, the GPS navigation system misled Phil and drove him towards a bridge that ultimately led to his death. But this is not an isolated case. Remember the time when a robot broke a child's finger during a tournament in Moscow? The video that went viral showed a woman followed by 3 men rushing to save the child after the robot caught the child's finger. And after the incident, the child continued to play on and was even part of the award ceremony after getting his hand put on a cast. And then there was a time when Amazon had to update its Alexa voice assistant after it challenged a 10-year-old girl to touch a coin to the prongs of a half-inserted plug. This happened after the girl asked Alexa for a challenge to do. The speaker suggested participating in the challenge that it had found on the web. This dangerous challenge, called the Penny Challenge, started circulating about a year ago then. The 10-year-old could have gotten seriously hurt had she gone ahead with this challenge. Amazon said it fixed the error as soon as the company became aware of it. But you see my point here. Technology, for all its benefits and advantages, cannot be relied upon. It is a double-edged sword that could turn deadly. At a time when the world is preparing for the next phase of technology to take over our lives, with all that talk about a metaverse, all things virtual and so on, this is a serious challenge that we need to deal with. And before we end tonight's show, here's a question for you. Do you know what day it is? It's a Monday, of course, and the 10th of October. What else? Today is the World Mental Health Day. It is a day to raise awareness about a growing global problem that people somehow are not comfortable talking about even now. What are some of the biggest mental health issues plaguing our world, and how can people cope with these problems? Our next report answers these questions and more.
If someone asks, "How are you?" by default our answer is mostly "I'm fine" or "I'm good." But what if you're not? You don't have to say you're fine if you're not. It is human to not be all right all the time, and it is essential we talk about it. We seek help when we break a bone or injure ourselves. Why don't we do the same when our heart is broken or when we're low? We choose to take a sick leave for our physical health, but what about our mental health? Today is World Mental Health Day. This year, the theme is Make Mental Health and Well-Being for All a global priority. The day was first celebrated in 1992 as a means of generating awareness for mental health issues. It was also celebrated to help remove the stigma attached to poor mental health. We talk about conquering outer space, but we are losing a battle with our minds. Why is mental health a taboo? It kills at least 800,000 people every year. Over 300 million people are suffering from depression. Over 260 million are living with anxiety disorders, and then there are people living with both. Dementia affects about 55 million people, bipolar disorder about 40 million people. Mental health is a silent pandemic, and it is killing us. The COVID-19 pandemic has worsened this crisis. Estimates say anxiety and depressive disorders rose more than 25% during the first year of the pandemic. The pandemic led to mental health services being severely disrupted, and the treatment gap for mental health conditions has widened. Social stigma and discrimination can add to the suffering and disability associated with mental health issues. This can lead to people committing suicide. We can fight it and we can stop it. World Mental Health Day is one initiative to combat this. For starters, we can encourage having conversations about mental health. From primetime television and newspaper headlines to dinner tables. Mental health is something that people must be comfortable talking about. We must understand that depression, anxiety is not a taboo. The next step, to not hesitate in seeking help. We live highly stressful lives. Deadlines at work, fleeting relationships, pressure from social media, there's a lot of it. And there's nothing wrong in suffering from anxiety or depression. The problem begins when we hide it. Half of all mental illnesses begin at the age of 14. Most cases go undetected or untreated. The result? Suicide. The leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. Though global suicide rates have been on the decline, the WHO says that over 700,000 people still take their own lives every year. Suicide attempts vary by age, but every segment of society is affected. Mental health issues need to be diagnosed early to prevent the loss of life. This mental health day, let's vow to be more kind to each other. Let us try to be more aware of mental health issues. Let us try to understand each other better. And let's try to break the stigma around mental health. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Let's now tell you what else made news. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
A U.S. trio, including former Fed head Ben Bernanke, win the Nobel Economics Prize for research on banking's role in the economy, especially on the importance of avoiding collapses during financial crises. Anti-government demonstrations continued to erupt in several locations across Iran. This is the most sustained protest in the country in years. At least 2 people were killed in the latest demonstrations. Marchers chanted anti-government slogans and rebelled against religious dress codes. Germany plans to fire the head of its national cybersecurity agency after reports he had contacts with Russian intelligence services. Malaysian Prime Minister dissolves parliament, paving the way for national elections to be held in the coming weeks. The election date will be announced by the Election Commission. Portugal has issued a unique digital nomad visa for remote workers. This is because remote work has become the norm for many people. Its D7 visa that was originally aimed at retirees has now become popular with remote employees. Thousands of people rallied in Bosnia, alleging that a pro-Russian Bosnian Serb leader rigged the ballot during a general election earlier this month. This is the second protest in the country in 10 days. A landslide in central Venezuela left at least 25 people dead and over 50 missing after a river overflowed, in the latest deadly disaster caused by heavy rains to hit the country. Several states in Guatemala have been inundated by floods caused by heavy and overflowing rivers. The Guatemalan Red Cross said that the rain was attributed to Tropical Storm Julia. The storm is expected to hit Guatemala today. 5-time World Player of the Year Cristiano Ronaldo reached yet another milestone in his glittering career. The 37-year-old scored his 700th club goal in Manchester United's come-from-behind 2-1 win over Everton in the Premier League. South Korea's Tom Kim has become the first player since Tiger Woods to win 2 PGA Tour titles before turning 21. The 20-year-old who won the Wyndham Championship in August achieved the feat at the Shriners Children Open in Las Vegas.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas. Thanks very much for watching.